All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for this session on time management. I need more time in my day. I appreciate all those who took the time to come and join us today. No, it's not easy to try to sit through a presentation at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Perhaps some of you just had an opportunity to finish lunch, but I hope that you'll be able to stay engaged and focus with me for this presentation. A few housekeeping items. I'm going to ask everyone to stay on mute during the presentation unless one, you're responding to a question, you have a question, or you just like to make a comment on some of the material that you see on the PowerPoint screens. I've been told that you're definitely welcome to keep your cameras off. I've heard that this kind of helps with the bandwidth so that the presentation goes a lot smoother. For some reason, when all the cameras are on, it can be a little disruptive, I guess, to technology and our ability to make sure that everyone can hear and see the presentation. Again, this session is being recorded and will be made available to you through the Individual Learning Center. They have a YouTube page that will house all the presentations that are going on today. Okay, so just a little bit about me. My name is, again, is Gloria Debnam. I currently serve as a training coordinator under the Workforce Continuing Education Department here at Wake Tech. I used to say recently graduated from finished graduate school, but it's been since May 2021, and where I finished the Master of Education in College Counseling and Student Development at North Carolina State University. Prior to going back to graduate school full time, I worked for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation for close to 21 years as they are the banking regulator. In addition to serving as a coordinator here at Wake Tech, I am a person who must live by to-do list and Outlook reminders on my phone and on my computer. I'm a daughter, a sister, and aunt. I'm also a national certified counselor, and finally, a member of Watts Chapel Baptist Church here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So, here is an overview of the topics that we will be going through today. Know yourself, know thyself, time consumption, big rocks, college student struggles, time management, why it's important, what can happen if you don't manage your time effectively. We'll try to go through some strategies and tools. And while we won't be able to hit on everything, we won't have an all exhaustive list. Hopefully, there'll be some things that you'll find helpful that you can use to manage your day, a recognition of that life happens and there'll be some unplanned events that you'll have to incorporate and respond to, and then realizing that not everything that you're responsible for can get 100%. We hope to have some time at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. If it goes like my first session, we actually had questions and comments throughout the presentation. So again, if you have questions or want to make comments throughout the presentation, please do so. There'll be opportunities where I ask you to make comments in the chat, so feel free to do that. And Catherine, congratulations on getting your counseling degree at ECU. So, wanted to get some responses to the quote on this screen. Either you run the day or the day runs you. So, want to get maybe a couple people to just respond to what that makes you think about or what that might mean to you. Any thoughts? As I was preparing for the presentation, one of the things that kind of came to mind was that if you let your day run you, if you don't effectively plan for your day, your week, or your month, that you always feel like you're putting out fires, that you're always reacting to things versus effectively managing your time. And so that can be exhausting, and you feel like you're burned out, and you're always wondering, where did the time go? So, again, this presentation is meant to helpfully give you some ideas about how you can more effectively manage your time. Jamie commented that controlling your time is better, or you're either running behind. And Walter says things can get away from you if you don't plan and prepare. Walter, that brings to mind way back in middle school, one of my English teachers had graded one of my papers, and on the top of the page, so I didn't get the grade that I expected, but she put a quote on there that said, proper preparation prevents poor performance. And so middle school was like moons ago for me. And so, but that quote has always stuck with me. All right, so let's get started. So, what I'd like to do is for those of you who feel comfortable, if you will respond in the chat to the first statement, would you name some common challenges that either you have or that you feel will be a challenging as you start college for time management? What are some common challenges with time management? What causes you to struggle? Distractions. Yes, Jennifer, thank you for distractions. Hmm. Anything else? Full-time work. Jamie, you are not the only one. Full-time work was definitely mentioned in the previous session. Thomas's, no, Walter says life, kids, work, daily emergencies, work, study, life balance, motivations, how to divide work, discipline, teenagers, motivation to use the time well. Yes, there is a lot going on. And that's one thing I have an appreciation for all of you because you're at different stages in your lives. And so, as I mentioned before, I recently completed graduate school. And so I was definitely a non traditional student, especially after having worked 20 plus years and going back to school. I was a non traditional student when most of my classmates were fresh out of undergraduate. So, a lot of things had changed. But yes, we're all make different decisions as to why we're coming back to school, starting college. And so I applaud you for doing that because it takes an investment not only of your time, but your finances and other commitments, and then also some sacrifice, especially for those who rely on you to be there for them. Now let's think about the second question. Who are some people or some activities that you have to consider when you're planning your day or week? Who are some people you have to consider? I know someone mentioned kids and spouses. Doris says her family she's got to consider when making these changes to her schedule and the commitment that she's made to studying. Coworkers, yes, Jamie, your coworkers as well. Work. Now, Jamie, when you mention coworkers, does that mean that you're not going to be able to work overtime, or how might your coworkers be impacted by your commitment to school? Clea says cooking for her kids. Another person says family, work, and homework. Most definitely. Those are some really good responses. Let's see, making self-care a priority. Catherine, most definitely. Yes, for uh, D. Waterman, taking care of pets. Okay, so Jamie having to take leave on time every day. Okay. Yeah, that's a commitment and impacting your coworkers who typically may be relying on you to be there the entire time. Clea, keeping the house clean, that kind of went by the wayside for me during graduate school. So good luck to you with doing that. And hopefully things will work out. But thank you all for sharing. I just wanted you to kind of consider some things like we can't always make our decisions in a bubble, like we're not the only ones impacted by the decisions that we make in our lives. And so I think taking the time to consider all those potential challenges and the people and activities that are going to be impacted by your commitment now to improve yourself and coming back to school or starting school for the first time. So this is a slide I put together about what consumes your times, and these are just three categories that I put together. And what you'll find is that the different items that are listed for you might need to be moved around. So, like I put non-negotiables and things that you have to do, like you have to go to class, you've got to implement some study time. For some of you, you're having to go to work, you're having to meal plan, having to learn new technology as you're coming to school, things that are personal goals that are important to you, making good grades, your physical and your mental health, volunteering, having a hobby that you really enjoy. And then finally, the fun and leisure and chill time, finding time to, to take some time for social media, to watch TV or shopping. So some of you may be thinking, well, for me, my time on social media is more a non-negotiable because that might be your job or your responsibility. So again, this is not an end all be all list for everyone, but it's something to kind of consider as you seek to plan out your weeks, your days, and your months ahead as you begin to study at Wake Tech. I want to show this video. It's an old video based on, it's a concept by Steve Covey, and it's called Seven Big Rocks. And it's to help you to kind of get some perspective on how to be more productive with all the responsibilities that you have. So I'm going to push the play button. Now, what I did realize is that some students, if they were on a Mac or an iPhone, they had trouble hearing, and the video wouldn't necessarily play on their device. So I apologize for that, but what you can do, if you're not able to see it as I play it in class, you can actually Google this Seven Big Rocks by Stephen Covey. But it's a 4-minute video, but after the video plays, I'd like to get some feedback on what your thoughts are. Okay, can I get some feedback if anybody wants to come off of mute, or if you want to type something in the chat? I'd be interested in hearing from a few people on whether you've seen that video before or not. How do you feel about that perspective in handling the big rocks first? So those might be, as mentioned on a previous slide, the non-negotiables for you. And the big rocks for people are all individual on a case-by-case basis with the things that are important to you. So any thoughts on the video?
Yes, I have. I've read this book a couple of times. I highly suggest it for people. It's actually a pretty easy read. And if you notice in the second of putting in the jar, he actually had time left over at the top. It wasn't actually filled in. So when you do it and you reverse the direction, it's not even that you're out of time. There's actually time left over, which is pretty interesting when you look at it from the other perspective where it was overflowing. So there wasn't even time to think about what might be missing.
Yes, indeed. It gives you, and what you may find is that you put your hardest and more energy and more time, effort into the bigger things that really matter. And somehow those smaller things, the pebbles and the sand, don't get as much effort because they're not necessarily, you realize prospectively in terms of how important they are. Jennifer says it provides the outlook of doing the bigger things first than the other stuff. I think I have to remind myself of this daily, definitely for sure. Funny how the minor, non-important things are always easier and seem fun to do, and hence easy to draw over. So yes, yes, because what I find, sometimes there's a temptation. If you have a list of items to do or responsibilities, there's a temptation to do the easy things first, get those quick wins, because you want to feel like you're being productive. But at the end of the day, what you may realize is that you're too exhausted or you're frazzled or you're distracted. And so those bigger, more meaningful projects or assignments don't get the time and energy that they require, that they deserve. And I mentioned that because, I think on each of the course outlines or the syllabus for your classes, the instructor will tend to put down the percentage each assignment counts for your entire grade. And so you want to make sure that you're giving those big rocks, those bigger assignments like those papers, the research papers, the group projects, the studying for exams, you give those the time and attention they need. And for those smaller, more minor assignments that may only count for a couple percentage points of your grade, to really put that in perspective. Catherine says there's a difference between being busy and being productive. Yes, there is. And you definitely have to know the difference in terms of possible. And that's where you comes in, where you're kind of setting goals. What are your short-term and long-term goals for your new journey at Wake Tech, and what things are important for you? And what you'll find is that you may have to kind of step back and pull back from some of your existing responsibilities. When I decided to resign from FDIC after close to 21 years and go back to school full time, at that time I was chair of the women's ministry at my church. And I had a conversation with my pastor and said, hey, I'm resigning from my job to go back to school full time. And so I'm going to step away from being chair of the women's ministry. There's just no way I can give it 100% and do things in an excellent manner that you require or you expect, and then study for school. Because again, non-traditional student, wasn't sure what to expect, but I wanted to do my best in school. And so I stepped away from that ministry at that time. And so there may be some things you have to pull away from temporarily, but you can still support, just maybe not in a leadership role. Walter says the minor things seem like they will be quick and easy, but before you know it, the other stuff is not done. Correct. Catherine, they're not the same thing, but they can be treated that way. So saying no is a full sentence. Yes, Catherine, I have a friend who says that all the time, no explanation needed. Okay, so potential problems. So in preparing for this presentation, I did time to do some research, and I found this article written by Sean Potts, that what college students struggle with the most. And so some of the things here listed are procrastination, where you're dealing with distractions that cause frantic attempts when you finally decide to sit down and do the assignments to get work completed. Managing many responsibilities. Earlier in our conversation, people mentioned responsibilities with family and full-time jobs. One person in my prior session said she's got to care for an elderly parent. So we all have different responsibilities and have a lot on our plates. And so having to consider again from that visual we just saw, what are your big rocks? What are the pebbles? And what's the sand? Learning how to plan effectively for long-term assignments. When I think about this, I'm thinking about any of the long-term assignments that you have with your classes. On the syllabus, it'll list, all the due dates, typically all the due dates. If it's not on the syllabus, then maybe the professors will use a learning management system, a calendar of sorts to kind of let you know the due dates for certain projects and when to expect exams. And so it's up to you to decide how much time should I spend in preparing for that paper. I know when I was in graduate school and working with internship and students, many of them managed to the deadline. So if they say, oh, my professor says assignment's not due until 11:59 Sunday evening, they waited, say, until like 10 o'clock to start the assignment. But guess what? If you've not read the syllabus and the criteria for that assignment and you start that paper at 10 o'clock, you don't realize that you say you had to speak to somebody or you had to interview somebody or there's different research required. And so then you're frazzled and stressed out because you're going to miss the deadline and your paper is going to be incomplete. So be considerate of the items in your syllabus and be prepared to plan effectively. This next concept, time blindness, was something I'd never heard about, but it's the difficulty in estimating how long a task or activity will take, or estimating how much time we have before a deadline. So again, one of these things where you have to be mindful of how much time it will take you to prepare and write that paper, how much will take you to prepare for an exam. Estimating how one of the solutions is to estimate how long it will take to do typical assignments and then keep track of it as you kind of go out through the semesters and complete your degree, considering how much time it's going to take you to do those assignments. Another possible challenge or problem area is remaining focused. So before we talked about, I think in the first part of the presentation, people talked about distractions and things that keep them from being focused. One of the things that I've recommended to students as you're going through your classes is that you may have to change your environment. Some people can be committed and study at home at a desk they have at a kitchen table. Others, like myself, when I was dealing with topics that were a little hard to kind of understand, I had to do more reading. During my studies, I actually spent Saturdays and Sundays at Hunt Library on NC State's campus. So I would be 6 and 7 hours those days back to back because I knew that I had to stay focused. Sometimes if I stayed at home and worked at home, I'd look out the window and I'm looking like, who's that walking in my yard and why are they using my driveway? Or I'm thinking, oh, I can put a load of laundry in. Let me go out there and get the laundry. Or I'm getting distracted and watch TV. Or I'm thinking about the snacks downstairs in the kitchen, all kinds of messed up. So I had to, for my own self, to get things done, to meet deadlines, I had to pull away and change my environment. You guys might not be like me. You may be able to stay at home and study, but just consider that, especially for topics that may require a little more time and effort. You may want to change your environment, and that could be going to the local library. Some people can study at a coffee shop, but just be considerate of that as you consider, planning your day. Yes, Catherine, it's funny you said like when you go down a rabbit hole and all of a sudden it's 3 a.m. Yes, indeed. Clea says she locks herself in her room. Catherine, it's funny because my pastor one day was sharing with us that one Saturday evening while he was reviewing his sermon notes for the Sunday message, that he found himself on social media, like you said, going down a rabbit hole, looking at all these ads and commercials and videos that were coming up in his feed. And so we can all get distracted. And so we just have to be mindful of that. time management and what it looks like. And so time management includes assigning specific time slots to activities based on importance. Again, how I mentioned before, as you look at your course syllabus, professors will indicate how much a assignment goes towards your grade, whether it's 25%, 30%, or 50%, to be mindful of how much weight that assignment carries, and then allow allocating the right amount of time for assignments and activities. So for me, reading long chapters in my textbooks might take me a little longer when someone else who can kind of speed read and gain and glean the concepts and have understanding. So you just have to kind of know yourself. Let's see. Catherine, I'm not sure what my pastor ended up watching, but it definitely wasn't related to his sermon, as he would say. Yeah, Clea, if you're a perfectionist, that can be problematic. I have a niece who is just getting ready to start college in a couple of weeks. And my sister, her mother, would often tell me that Sydney had a problem with this. Like if her project or assignment couldn't be perfect, she wouldn't turn it in. So I'm like, no, 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 we can't do that. We can't be getting those zeros. Like, no, give it your best effort and turn it in. I think the big key is to look at, because in syllabus, typically, or either during class, a professor will give you criteria and tell you how the assignment's going to be graded. So make sure as you're doing those bigger, more heavily weighted assignments, that you're following that outline to make sure that you are including and addressing everything in there. It's easy to think you're reading through if they're saying respond to questions. You might read them really quickly and overlook a big key factor in what they're asking you to present, and you'll end up getting points deducted. So make sure you read the course syllabus make sure you're understanding. For me, I am a paper person. I self-admit that I kill trees all day, every day. I have paper all over my desk, but it helps me stay organized. And I like to read hard copy papers, not so much online or electronic materials. I have similar problem where I expect myself to do everything perfectly. If not, I would feel uneasy. Well, I hope that, as we talk through this, that you'll be able to kind of develop ways where you feel more comfortable in, doing your assignments again to a point where you feel like it's good. And you can gauge your need for perfectionism based on the feedback, hopefully from your professors. I've not taken classes here, curriculum classes at Wake Tech, so I don't know if professors tend to give you written feedback or detailed feedback on your assignments, but start gauge it based on what kind of feedback you're getting on the assignments that you turn in. The grading rubric for the assignment, yes, is a great tool. Definitely have to be aware of that. So keep those things in mind. Effective planning, you want to make sure that you're setting some goals. What do you need to accomplish? Set some intermittent deadlines. So again, if a paper's not due until the end of, say if this is September 1st, the paper's not due till September 30th, don't wait till the 29th to start the paper, but set incremental goals to get things done, like the outline, to do the research, and that way you're not scrambling. If you're like me, I tend to like to draft my papers, sit it down for a day or two and go back and reread it, because I find that I'll catch any grammar and punctuation errors and things that I might have listed on the course syllabus or the grading rubric where I missed something that was required to be included in the paper. I don't know if everyone has the option to do this, but maybe consider delegating some of your responsibilities. If there are things that are done that you typically do in your community or at your home, maybe asking family members or friends to kind of help you with those responsibilities, letting them know that you've had to shift your focus to school and that you would appreciate their help in assisting with some of the responsibilities that you've typically done. Things you want to do in prioritizing your activities, again, based on the due date, the amount of time it takes to complete, the percentage of the grade. And also, this was a big thing, like if you're mid-semester and if professors give you an update on where your grade stands, like if you're at a C average and your professor says, hey, you can bring this up to a B if you do really well on the next few assignments. That's important to give those items time. I'm not on a new slide. I was actually just reading from some of my notes on this slide, Catherine. But I am getting ready to click to the next one. So, for time management, these are some things that it can lead to. producing poor quality work, missing deadlines, increased stress levels, ruining your college or work-life balance, and harming your reputation. If you had to pick one of these five, which ones would you say are your biggest concern? If you don't manage your time effectively, what are you most concerned about as you start here at Wake Tech? If you had to pick one of the five, what is your biggest concern? Poor quality work, increased stress levels, stress, poor work quality and stress. Okay, are the top two. Okay. Anybody concerned about your reputation? Oh, yes, reputation, low quality work. And so when I mention reputation, what I'm thinking about is how your professors perceive you. So they may not tell you this, but you have to know that they're watching you as you come to class. Are you on time? Are you engaged? Are you answering questions? Does it seem like you've read the materials ahead of time before class? Do you tend to complete assignments in a timely manner, or are you always asking for an extra day? Is your work quality, especially, and then thinking about if you're given group projects, can your teammates count on you? Or are you the one who's not responding to their text messages? You're not showing up to the meetings, whether on Zoom or in person. You want to have, I think, a good reputation from your professors and your classmates because you just never know when those relationships will pay off in the end. Sometimes students have to ask for reference letters from professors, and you want them to be able to say good things about you. And then teammates, if you have other classes with them, you don't want to be the person that they avoid because you've not done your part for a group assignment. Okay, next slide. So here are some time management skills. It's not an all exhaustive list, but some ones that were important as listed in this article that I read about being organized, effectively prioritizing your assignments, setting goals, communication, planning, delegation, stress management, and note taking. When I put down, or when communication popped up, one of the things that I wrote down or typed in to mention to you was being willing to communicate again to the people that are impacted by the changes you're having to make. But then also, if you get to the point where you're in the middle of completing an assignment or you're reading the instructions and you don't understand them, please do not spin your wheels. I think most of the times professors give you information about how to connect with them outside of class, whether that's if them having office hours or if they give you a platform to reach out to them. Please, by all means, ask for clarity for things you don't understand. If your teacher is not available, then if you develop relationship with classmates, then you can easily reach out to the individuals in your class and ask them, hey, I didn't understand this assignment. Can you help me? Please don't struggle and don't spin your wheels, but take the time to communicate with others because they can help you. This is like a journey and it's not, a competition. It's really just to make sure that you do your best and that you have things that you need to complete your assignments in a timely manner. Is there anything up here that you feel like you do really well now? So, of these 8 things that are up here, are there items that you feel like, you know what? I got this. I do really good in taking notes, or I really do good in planning. What are some things that you feel like you already do well? Communication and goal setting, note taking, organization, note taking. Okay, stress management, prioritization. Okay, okay. Jamie's got a lot. 4 of the 8, that's half already there. Okay. Note taking, communication, and goal setting. Okay, on the opposite side of the spectrum, what areas are challenging for you? Is it hard for you to delegate, to ask others to pitch in? Is it hard for you to plan ahead? What things are challenging to you, or you feel like will be challenging for you as you begin to start here at Wake Tech? Prioritizing, delegation. Okay. Now, Jamie, what makes delegating so hard or so challenging? Do you not trust people to do quality, or to take care of responsibilities if you ask them to do it for you? Do you mind sharing what that means, why delegation might be a concern? Asking for help. Oh, you don't want to rely on others. Asking for help, Thomas. I hear that. So, one of the things I'd like you to consider, and so I know we've got different people at different stages in their lives on the call today, but think about it. These are some of the very basic skills or some fundamental skills that many employers will expect you to have and to be able to carry out on your jobs. And so, realizing that you have a lot on your plate and asking for help or assistance is not a sign of weakness. It's actually very wise because you realize that there's only so much time in a day, and to give your best effort to large and meaningful projects means you can't do all the other ancillary things. And so, asking for help is a very important skill to have. And I think you'll realize that people can actually do things that you may not have initially expected. I'll give you an example. So I have 7 sisters and 1 brother. My mother owns a home, and so as projects come up that need to be done, typically it falls on the 3 oldest to get things done. In this particular instance, my mom was having some kitchen enhancements made with her countertops and her stove. I had to go out of town. I had made the arrangement with Lowe's Home Improvement, but I wouldn't be able to be there the time they were going to install. So typically, I'm like, well, we got to get one of the older sisters to handle it. But I reached out and asked one of my younger sisters, Carolyn, to take care of that project. And because I asked her, she did it without problems. And so now I know that I, as an older sister, don't always have to bear the brunt of house projects, that I can reach out and give other people the responsibility. Sometimes people just need to know that you trust them. You can give them directions and ask for guidance and ask for their help in doing projects, especially when you feel like it's something they can do. And sometimes, Jamie, it's a matter of kind of giving them really good instructions as to do to help you to carry, and then maybe, Jamie, making yourself available for reference. So if you delegate something to one of your coworkers and you say, hey, just reach out to me if you get stuck, ask me questions, but I really appreciate you helping with this assignment. Clea wants to feel self-sufficient. Totally understand that. And so, Clea, but what I would say, it's not always going to be that way. During this time, you just have to kind of maybe delegate some things, and then you could pick it up and be Miss Independent, after things get done. But again, just help. It's also part of your self-care. Realizing that you can't do everything, you can't be everything, and wanting to take care of yourself, and again, giving other people the opportunity to be great. Thank you all for that feedback. I love the engagement. It makes these presentations so much easier. So on the screen, so I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I am a self-admitted paper person. I kill trees all day, every day here at work. I love paper. I like to read hard copies. I like to make notes on papers and updates as I get different projects done. I also have an issue with bypassing school supplies, office supplies, organizational supplies when they're on sale. And I kind of blame it on my job as an auditor because we were always taking notes and sticky notes and colored pens and papers. And so when I bought this at Walgreens on sale, I had no idea how I was going to use it, but it came in very handy in next to last semester no, my last semester of graduate studies recently. And so as you can see, I drew lines on it to kind of show like the different times by 12 o'clock, by 4 o'clock, and by 8 o'clock. And what I started with is the non-negotiables, things I had to do. So I put down class times, my time for internship, and I also then added the items that had due dates during this week. So in blue was always, at this point, was related to my internship at Barton College, the days and times I had to be on site and available. The also blue talks about different assignments I may have had to do with that. The pink on here for me was related to my classes, my graduate classes, the time of classes, and then any assignments that were due that day. The orange represented social activities, things that I had been invited to or committed to do. And then purple for me was related to church commitments I had. And so this was just a way, and you see check marks all over this. To me, that was very satisfying to be able to check some boxes and say I'd gotten some things done or I'd met my commitments. But everybody, is a little different. Catherine says that she used a whiteboard and paper calendars. Jennifer, she likes things bright to see the motivation. And Catherine's like me, like the stuff gets stop crossing stuff off. And Clea's with me. Yeah, you got to find ways to keep yourself engaged and to meet those deadlines. For me, it's having to see things. I have to see things. This is another planner. So the one here on the left-hand side, I bought this after I got this from Amazon. This is more of a weekly planner. I love the boxes where you can add notes, and at the bottom right-hand corner where you can add different goals throughout the week. But again, you find things that work best for you. This one to the right, this is a monthly calendar that I initially used because this was right after COVID started. And so I like being able to kind of see my whole month planned out, what my commitments were, assignments, and projects. The last semester of grad school was intense. And so I found this assignment tracker on Google. I think I just Googled it for assignment tracker. And what I did was this list the subject and it's color coded. So this was my counseling families and couples class. And I wrote down every assignment that we had here, the due dates. And the same thing here for my internship class, what assignments I had to turn in weekly versus and long-term assignments and the due dates. And I kept notes to keep track of things to be completed. You'll notice down here at the bottom on a weekly basis, I had to turn in hour logs because it was important for me to earn the hours to complete my degree. And so me seeing this circle was satisfaction. Again, another way for me to make note of items I had completed. Allison likes color coding. Yeah, colors are the jam for me. But you might not be the type of person that needs all of that in terms of hard copy paper. So we have some things for you. If you're more of an electronic person, you need something that's automated. I found this article that listed out some apps that are free to students or anybody who'd like to use them. And they are some of the more common ones that are used. So it's not an exhaustive list, but these are some ones, again, that are free. So wanted to know if any of you have ever used any of these apps. So the Google Calendar, Reclaim AI, Todoist, Pomo Focus, or Notion. Have you heard of these? Has anyone used them and found them to be helpful? Okay, Google Calendar, it's okay. Notion is great. Outlook Calendar, helpful. Hoang, would you mind coming off mute and sharing why you feel like Notion is so great? And I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Leah likes Google Calendar. Doris is like me, a paper person. Catherine wants to use Pomo Focus. Okay, but you can't unmute. No problem, no problem. Anyone else would like to get a link of your assignment tracker? Okay, I'll see, Walter, I'll see if I can find it. I will definitely see if I can find it. And if you could, so Walter, I'm gonna ask you to email me so I don't forget. Okay, so I'll just quickly review the description for these apps. The only one I have used is Google Calendar. So Google Calendar allows you to visualize your weekly scheduled classes, events, and tasks by what they call time blocking. And as someone mentioned earlier in our discussions, that you can actually color code your different activities. And I use this now for my daily week. I have tasks for administrative tasks, personal meetings, other assignments, so different ways you can color code things. And there's someone, I think earlier in session said that you can actually set it to repeat, so you don't have to type this up every week. So again, for those non-negotiables where you got class every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you're working Tuesday, Thursday, you can set it to repeat. Reclaim AI is a smart time blocking app for Google Calendar that automatically schedules time for your task. So again, for those of you who have mentioned, I have time trying to gauge the time I need to spend on times, this might be the app for you. And it helps you to incrementally get things done before they are due. And it helps identify different times you have available in your calendar. Todoist is a popular time management app that puts a more efficient spin on the classic to-do list, and it creates a digital list. So again, for those who are more digital, more techie, don't want to carry around paper, this one might be for you. Homo Focus is a free online timer that allows you to set the duration of focus time along with breaks. Someone mentioned in our earlier session that this was very like a game changer for them once they discovered this app because it has you start out with setting a timer where you focus for 25 minutes straight and then you take a break. And so until they got into the rhythm, this app was very helpful as they sought to study for assignments. And this might mean you having to put your phone away from you where you have to kind of shut out notifications where you again maybe have to change locations, study in a different environment. So figuring out a way to again use your time effectively and focus. And then Notion is a project management app perfect for students. I thought this one was interesting because it allows you to record and organize class notes. Imagine that. Materials, academic goals, list, and reminders. So again, maybe you will take an opportunity maybe to do some more reading up on these different apps, and then maybe ask some of your classmates if they use any of these and find them to be most helpful. Allison says that she uses paper or Google Calendar. Catherine mentioned the POMO method being talked about in the effective reading session. I can understand that. And then Mayara, I also use Timo. Oh, I've never heard of that one. So we have another different app in the chat. Maybe you want to consider TIIMO. It's good for planning what you're doing every day, and it's really visual. I think it's kind of like Todoist. So again, these are just some options that you may want to consider for those of us who are diehard paper, checking boxes. But then these are also alternatives for those who are a little more electronic and tech savvy and prefer to keep things on their phone. But I hope you will take the opportunity to find and explore different ways that will be helpful for you. So here's the thing. I think someone mentioned earlier that no is a complete sentence. For those of us like myself who at times have a hard time telling people no or turning down requests for my assistance for things that I enjoy doing. So you don't want to sound angry and like do y'all know the reference Incredible Hulk? Have y'all ever heard of him? You don't want you don't want to sound like the incredible. Okay, I think the actor's name was Lou Ferrigno. So look up that. Incredible. When he got angry, he got very, very angry. And he turned green and big and bulky. So take a look at that. It's just funny. So you don't want to be that person. And so these are just some nicer ways to tell family and friends, Walter, you know what's up. You just don't want to make me angry. You wouldn't be happy when I'm angry. That's it. So other ways to say no. No thanks. I have another commitment. Unfortunately, it's not a good time. Apologies, but I can't make it. That sounds great, but I can't commit to that. Or I wish I could make it work, but I just can't at this time. And so maybe your no is more of like not right now, but then you give them an alternative. So if a family member says, hey, we really haven't spent a lot of time together, I'd really like to have dinner with you. If you've already got your month planned out or your week planned out, instead of just giving them a hard no, you can say, hey, I can't go on Wednesday, but how about next Saturday? Let's go ahead and put that on our schedules. So again, that's a nicer way of saying no, not right now. And so again, and some people may not have trouble saying no, but again, I want you to be mindful. If people are always relying on you, they're going to keep relying on you and pulling on you. And so just letting them know that you have a different focus at this time to get your degree and complete it, that you're still there for them, you still care for them, but there's just some things you have to say no to. As we get closer to the end of our session, the next thing I wanted to say, and you guys, all you people, everyone knows this, life happens. So you can plan things to the T. And inevitably, if you have kids, if you have a partner, if you have a job, if you volunteer, if you have a car, if you have a job, things are going to happen. And what I strongly urge you to do is if you find yourself in a time crunch, about to maybe, if you can't complete an assignment, I work with students at Barton College, and they would say, Miss Gloria, my computer just died on me and I lost my assignment. I'm like, so what you gonna do? You need to email that professor today and tell them, hey, or say, hey, I was working on my paper, my computer died, I've lost most of my work. Can you give me an extension on the paper? And so while they may say, well, I have to take a few points deductions from that grade, but at least you've communicated. Please do um, not share things with your professors. Now, you don't have to get all the details. You can say, hey, a family emergency came up. I'm going to be late to class, or I won't make it to class, but I'm going to touch base with you about what was discussed in class because I really want to do well. Just communicate. This thing for me, not everything gets 100%. It's just a way to kind of say that you're managing your time and your energy. And some weeks you can go full force, but if an emergency happens and you realize, you know what, I can't give my paper 1,000% like I'd like to, it's not going to be tied in a pretty bow, but it's going to meet all the criteria. I won't get to read it several times like I previously liked to, but I'm still going to submit my paper. Again, not everything could get 100%. You have to take care of yourself. And some weeks you're going to be like, you know what, I need to just take a moment and take an hour away and do something different. Does anybody have any questions in our last few minutes or things you'd like to share about time management? Anything that I've discussed or things that still might be concerning to you? Perfection is never expected. I would agree. And you have to kind of convince yourself of that and be okay with that. I will also say that I know the session went by quickly, and there may have been some things you wish we could have spent more time on, but the Individual Learning Center is here for you. There are different ways, hopefully that they've already covered, where they let you know how that you can make it an individual appointment to meet with somebody. I think the appointments can be remote and or in person. So I strongly encourage you to take advantage of that. For those of you who are hanging around and going to 4 o'clock sessions this afternoon, the coordinator, James Strickland, has put those links in there. I think some people had a few, we got a little turned around with some of the links. So hopefully for those of you who are staying on to go to a 4 o'clock session, you'll have the links that are for those here. Walter said, I think I need a long-time management personal coach. I know that's right. Or you need somebody who's going to hold you accountable. One or the other. They both work. Jamie, this has been a great session. Oh, thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that. I'm so glad. I hope that everyone found something helpful in this session that you can use. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to share my PowerPoint presentation with Mr. Strickland, and I imagine he has a way, since you all signed up for this class, he may have a way to share that with you. A time management drill instructor, Walter, perhaps. But again, thank you all so much for your time today. I know sometimes it takes a big deal to kind of log on for training at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, right before the weekend, but I so appreciate your time and your engagement today. If there's anything you have questions about the presentation, my email address is on the PowerPoint slide now. Currently work at the Western Wake campus here in Cary. So I don't know if I'll ever have an opportunity to get a chance to meet you in person, but I hope you have a wonderful experience here at Wake Tech. And again, please take advantage of all the services that they offer to students. You pay tuition and you've given your time and energy, and you need to take advantage of everything that they offer. Oh, Jamie, that's a good thing you're able to take a vacation before classes begin. That's very, very smart. And you all are very, very welcome. So yeah, if you have any questions, as people are kind of dropping out, you can come off mute, and we have a few minutes left. If you have any questions. Oh, self-discipline. Oh, that's going to be a good class. Okay, I should probably sit in on that one. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. And again, good luck. Best wishes as you start your time here at Wake Tech. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome.
Thank you for this. It's funny, some of the things you mentioned, I'm probably around the same age that you are. And
Uh,
so, like when you said the Incredible Hulk and somebody hadn't ever heard of him before, I'm like, oh no, okay, that's just our age.
right, I'm old. I told you I was a non-traditional student.
That's why I love paper too, though. I mean, we didn't have the internet. There was no Microsoft Word when I was going to school. So
Yes.
it's but the paper one, they actually have done many research studies on stuff, and they talked about this too in note taking. But handwritten is actually better retained because your
Mm-hmm.
focus is on changing the wording to your own and then putting it on paper from brain to hand to paper. So
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
so even
One
if
of
some
my
people don't like the writing, it's a good one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say when I showed up to grad school back in May of 2019, my classmates all had their MacBooks. I come in with like notebooks, 5-star notebooks, post-it notes, and highlighters and pens, and they were like, "Who is this?"
Oh yeah. Yeah, I actually started Wake Tech 2 years ago to work on some certificates. I already had a bachelor's and then applied to grad school, which I just started this summer. And I walked in with my notebook and everyone had their computer out. But I also noticed that I took really good notes, and the girl sitting next to me was on social media within 10 minutes of the class starting.
Yeah.
So it's so easy to get distracted. Whereas the notebook, I only brought my notebook, so I had nothing else to do. Like you said, going to another location, to be able to not have distractions of laundry and such. If
Yes.
you only have your notebook, there's nothing else for you to do but to write stuff down.
Yes, and being in the James Hunt Library on Saturdays and Sundays and everybody's focused, like that's all you can do. Is study
Exactly.
and
And
eat
multitasking
snacks.
is so bad for you. It's so bad for you because you don't ever give 100% to anything. And so I knew I was giving 100% because there was nothing else I could do but write notes.
Exactly, and stay focused.
Well, yeah, and I asked a lot more questions. My professors knew me. I was able to get those letters of recommendation that you mentioned because I was constantly engaged in the class, so they knew me. But I've also
That
been on the
makes a
opposite
difference.
side where you said about reputation, where I've missed some deadlines and stuff at work or something, and I could tell that people did not trust me as much anymore when those things started to fall away, or you know, I was too overwhelmed or stressed and not asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It
hard to
def
get them to turn back around.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. But thank you so much for sharing and for the engagement. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. When you said it's a master's in education, so it's counselor education. It's just at ECU. And when you said NC State, I'm like, oh, we're probably going to be doing the same thing. So that's awesome. So
Indeed.
we need more licensed therapists. So I'm excited to be part of the community. I'm actually going to write your email address down that way if it would be okay to contact you. You never know.
Most
This network
definitely.
is small, so it's good for us to get engaged.
For sure. Thank you so much.
And thank you for the session. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So, Walter, I saw you coming off and on mute a couple times. Did you have comments for me, questions?
Well, I was just gonna say, I don't know if there's any studies, but I'm probably like all you guys. I'm up there in years compared to most of the other students, and um, take handwritten notes. But I've also I'm also an IT guy, so I got lots of computers, lots of access to all that stuff. And even if you have a pad that you can write on, like a Microsoft Surface or something like that, where you can actually
Uh-huh.
take notes in writing, they're not as good and not as um, they're just not as
Effective?
good as the paper ones are. And I don't know if
Mm,
they've done any studies on that or not, but I'm trying to find something electronically that is anywhere near as good as the paper notes. And I found something I mentioned in another class. It's called Mind Manager that I use
oh,
for a lot of stuff. Um, but oops, sorry about that. But it's more about it's good for taking notes and also for structuring if you're gonna be writing a paper, any kind of paper, any kind of written project, any kind of a plan and stuff like that's good for that because it lets you visualize a lot of different concepts and stuff. It's not so good for time management, and I guess unless you take an existing template and put a template into it and start using it that way, which I haven't done for time management because I haven't had the time.
That's funny.
But I just noticed that even when you've got a Samsung Note or a Microsoft Surface or whatever, you start taking notes and stuff, it is horrible compared to the books, the paper books. You got a notepad there and, just flip a couple pages, start writing a new note, flip a couple pages, start writing new notes, and then you fill in the blanks later or whatever. It's a lot better.
And I guess
And-
it might be also, it might be influenced by now that in schools now, that they do use computers more. And that might be because, like you said, we're old school and we were raised with notebooks and pens and pencils and those types of things. I just don't know that the schools really encourage them to use pen and paper a lot now.
No, in fact, they don't. In fact, no, they definitely don't. In fact, most everything is done online.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
So even show your work stuff, they expect you to do it on a touch screen.
Yeah.
For math problems and stuff. So yeah, but hey, I loved your class. I loved your session. I loved all that stuff. And I'll send you the email about the thing I was asking about. And hopefully you'll get the PowerPoint sometime soon too.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, Walter, for your engagement. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Everyone have a good weekend. Does anyone else have any questions before I log out? All right, if not, have a good weekend.